One of Excel's best analytical tools is what we call a pivot table. It's based on analyzing a list. On this worksheet, we've got a list in columns A through G. It's over 900 rows, and we like to come up with some summary information. It's part of that idea of give me the big picture. I don't need to see the detail all the time. Now, Excel has a number of data management tools, and you might have seen this in the previous movies. On the Data tab, we've got sorting and filtering and a lot of different data tools here. One of these tools off to the right, Subtotal, which we're not going to be using actually, does allow us to introduce new lines into our list for summary information. But suppose we wanted to come up with a concise view of how well these salespersons are doing by region. Any of the salespersons, by the way, can sell any of the products to any of the customers, and no one salesperson is responsible for this region or that. So there's a lot of cross currents here in terms of transactions. Off to the right could be one of the things that we want to do. And here it's done manually by way of formulas. And we could easily envision a similar list here that might show the products across the top or the customers. We want to know how many items are being sold by each salesperson in each region, for example, here. And how can we do this? I'm going to double click on cell J2. Well, we could be using a function called SUMIFS. Now, this is not the most difficult function in Excel for most people, but on the other hand, if you only use it occasionally, it's going to take a little bit of time to get used to it. And furthermore, you'd want to be verifying your results. So this is not the way to go, even though that's certainly viable. With a pivot table, we can take a list like what we're seeing to the left here and create a summary like this in about 5 or 10 seconds. And if we were making a presentation and someone in our audience said, could we break this out by the 5 products over here instead of the region? Your answer would be yes, give me a second, and it would take about that long. And we'd have a completely new list. We would have 5 columns here, and we'd have new totals without a formula in sight and no concern about trying to use unwieldy functions like this. So, prerequisite, we have to have a list. Ideally, no empty rows within the list, no empty columns. And if you've been working with a list frequently, been sorting it and using filtering, you probably have that in place already. It's always best to have your titles in a single row. So let's create a pivot table. It's not found on the Data tab with other data management tools. In a certain sense, it's a different creature. Like a new chart, we're going to insert a new pivot table. It's on the Insert tab in the ribbon. I'll click Pivot Table. Excel nearly always figures out the range. Give that a quick look. We're about to see a new sheet. We'll click OK. There's our pivot table off to the left, but it's empty for the moment. But off to the right, we've got a list of those headings. I'm going to click the box for Salesperson. Over on the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see a unique and alphabetized list of all of the salespeople. Then I'm going to click the box for Items. And there we see the totals that we had seen earlier. And then the next thing I'll do a little bit different, I'm going to drag the word region down into this area here called columns. And there's our pivot table. In the lower right-hand corner, I'll click the pluses on that slider bar. So we've got the same numbers we saw before. And just for reference, I'll click back on the previous sheet, the one to the right where the source is, and scroll to the right. Our top performer here, Willie Loman, 1496. There's that total, 11297. And you might remember another number or two. We'll jump back here. We're seeing exactly the same numbers and not a formula in sight. And there are many things we can do with this pivot table too. And just one easy thing that I suggested earlier, imagine if you were making a presentation and the discussion about these numbers, perhaps with your audience of sales representatives, has reached its more or less conclusion. Could we see this same breakout, but instead of region, let's do it by product? So what do we do in the pivot table? Uncheck the region, drag product into the columns area, and there we are. We might do it with customer a bit later. And we can put these either down the left-hand side or across the top. There are many, many things we can do with this. And for the most part, when we work with pivot tables, we don't worry about formulas at all. It's an amazing tool, and it's easy to use. And it's one of those features where the more you use it, the more you realize how easy it is to analyze large amounts of data. A pivot table, one of Excel's best analytical tools.